Hi, this is Stacia, and I wanted to show a game from the Cleveland Open, which I attended this past weekend. And it was 5 rounds. I played the under 1500 section. Um, I'm usually above 1500, but I had a bad month in July. And there was prize money for first. So I thought, why not try, even though this was a slow time control. So 40 moves in 100 minutes with 10-second delay, and then sudden death of 30 minutes. In game number 1, which is this particular game, I played a young girl named Chloe Wang, probably about 8 years old, if I had to guess. Um, and I kept with my rule, which is always lose to 8-year-old girls. Yeah, I don't do well against children. But at the same time, she's probably been playing longer than I have, so I try not to feel too bad about it. All right, so let's get into the game. E4, D5. I played the Scandinavian defense. And now we just fall into the main line here. The knight attacks the queen. I move it. She develops her other knight. I develop my knight. D4, a very important move in the Scandi, because D3 would block in this bishop, and D4 also later supports knight E5. Now, bishop F5. This develops, we want to play E6, so this develops the bishop outside of the pawn chain, because we want our pawns on E6 and C6 in the Scandi. Bishop C4, a great move. This is a great post for the bishop. And now C6. C6 does a couple things. It allows an escape square for our queen. And also we want to play E6 and develop this bishop. C6 also controls D5, which is what my arrows are about. So we're going to play E6, C6, and clamp down on D5. And white's idea is to break with D5. Okay, Chloe castled. And so what's interesting about this is a little bit of a sideline because white almost always plays the move bishop D2 and threatens discoveries on the queen. And this is just a very common theme in the Scandinavian. But what I actually like what Chloe did a lot. She delayed the development of her dark square bishop, which gains her a tempo and allows her to make some threats. And then her idea is to bring the bishop to F4. And on this diagonal, it can stop me from playing the move queen C7, since the bishop will be controlling the square. In fact, it's a pretty annoying bishop on F4. All right, so E6, rook E1. So I'm just demonstrating here how when you see a move like rook E1 opposite your king, you want to take note that now your e-pawn is pinned. And this bishop would be hanging if not for the queen defending it. And also, one thing I consider is that D5 may be more possible because rook E1 actually removed this, this pawn defender of D5. So that is something to watch out for. All right, and now I made an inaccuracy. I played bishop E7. It looks natural enough, but the main line here is knight B to D7. And I don't know exactly why. It does get us ready to castle queenside. So that's a bit of a mysterious move, but that's the top move. Well, it's the 100% book move in theory. But maybe it's inaccurate because of what happens next. All right, so Chloe played knight E5. And now there's a threat in the position that I didn't see during the game, and that's the fact that the G4 square is uncovered. So before knight E5, G4 is controlled by black because our bishop and our knight are defending the square. And after knight E5, it's defended by white, so it's controlled by white now. And G4 is possible, and this is an idea in the Scandi to sort of hunt down this, and sometimes trap this light square bishop. So even being aware of this, I completely missed it. The only way to really counter this is knight b to d7. So I think probably the reason this move needed to be played earlier was to be ready to challenge the knight on e5. So I castled, and this is actually a bit of a mistake. I might even call it a blunder, because now g4, and that's really uncomfortable. The bishop doesn't have any squares except for this one, and now h4. Notice the knight. Another problem is this knight is blocking the defense of the h4 square, so this is totally possible. And yeah, if I try to play like h6, then knight takes, f takes, and now rook takes e6. And suddenly black's in huge trouble. As you can see, the bishop is hanging. There's discoveries against the queen or the king, and black is completely lost in this position. So if you can't play h6, yeah, if you can't play h6, then you're in big trouble. Because now h5 is coming. Yeah, and the computer is saying right now that rook d8 is the best move. So eyeing this pawn and also the queen. But h5, and the bishop is trapped. So lucky for me, my young opponent did not see that. That would have been depressing to lose a piece right in the opening in these long games. But she played bishop f4. So it's not as good because she didn't win a piece, but it's still a good move positionally. Because again, now there's discoveries on the c7 square, so I can't really put my queen there, even though I'd really like to. Okay, and finally knight b d7. She played h3. And then bishop d3. Or I'm sorry, I played rook f to e8. Rook f to e8, I was just defending the bishop. White has two interesting moves here. I won't go into them, but g4 still works, but it says the position is slightly better for white. And also, knight takes f7 kind of works. I guess I could show it. This in combination with g4. And this is just the computer line, but it's kind of weird. Oh, it's queen takes f5, I'm sorry. Bishop g3. Yeah, and it says the position is basically equal here after queen takes h3. So pretty crazy line. And yeah, it wasn't a true sacrifice because white does get that back right away. All right, so anyway, that did not happen in the game though. My opponent played bishop d3. So in the Scandi, you almost always want to trade bishops. For the reason I was saying, this bishop sometimes is a problem and gets trapped, and if it doesn't, it can be a really good piece, but there's really nowhere to put this bishop anyway, so I'm not sure I have much of a choice. So I took, and the queen comes out. So the downside is that this helped her develop, and she has access to the g3 square, so that's something to watch for here. And now I had to come up with my middle game plan. And I have to say that I came up with the wrong plan. It's not the worst thing ever, but in this position, what would you play as black? Actually, there's a few good moves. Knight takes e5 is good, just because our knight on d7 is not as good on the one on e5. And in the Scandi, since we're a bit cramped, it's actually helpful to trade off a couple pairs of minor pieces. The computer also likes rook a to d8 or rook e to d8. So just getting our rooks on better squares. I'd probably play rook a to d8, opposite the queen. In the game, I thought I would win a tempo on the bishop by playing knight d5. This is a great square for the knight. But I think I allowed white to get a little something with this. The computer says position's still roughly equal. She decided to take, and now you have to take back with the queen. If I were to take back with a pawn here, oops, just dropped a piece. So queen takes, defends the knight. So this is important. But then white has a good move here, c4. So thrusting in the center and attacking the queen. It looks like this is sort of a problem because the queen must defend the knight. So we can't just go back to a5 or anything like that. But I saw this ahead of time, and I figured knight takes e5 was good. Or fine, at least. Now, if white wanted to take my queen, I take their queen. And now I'm hitting their bishop and their rook. So this would be good. Of course, she didn't do that. The best move here is to just take with the bishop, and she's fine. So that is what she did. And now I still have to move my queen. So d7's an option. But I actually thought a5 was good because I saw she might play queen g3 and start attacking me later. And I wanted my queen to be able to swing over to the king side. I'm not sure how good this plan is either, because the downside is that my queen is uncomfortable. It doesn't have a lot of squares over here and might get trapped. So I couldn't really calculate that all through, so I had to kind of just see what happened here. Alright, so queen g3, as predicted. And against this, since she is a threatening mate now, I figured I had bishop f8. And just hold it together. Now rook e4. So she's just doing a very standard kingside attack. I saw rook e4 too, so I went ahead with my plan. Queen d2. Computer says white is only slightly better here, so the attack is not crushing, although I was a bit nervous. So next move, rook g4, of course. So my g-pawn is attacked a third time. So how would you defend this as black? Well, there's really only two moves, so hopefully you found them. g6 is the best move here. And I saw this move, I was a little afraid to play it though, just because, well, white has a dark square bishop, and I guess I'll be able to play bishop g7 though, is the point. But I didn't play g6. Even though that does look better to me now. I played this move, queen h6. It's funny, the computer actually says to threaten white's pawns and like take the pawns and stuff. I mean, that's a very cold-blooded computer thing to do though, because it wants me to play g6 and then use my queen to harass pawns and things like that. But when I'm being attacked, I want to bring all my pieces over to defend until I know I'm safe. Alright, so here she played rook e1. So she's getting ready to bring a second rook into the attack. So maybe something like this. I don't know. But I was definitely a little nervous here. And then I played the move f6. So there's a really good response to this move, and that's bishop f4. And now my queen's under attack, and my queen doesn't really have any good squares. And yeah, this is the point in the game where I made a huge blunder. So there's only one move that works for black here. So if you want to pause your video for a second and find the only defensive resource, please do so now. Okay, and the move is queen h5. So queen h5. The thing I didn't see about this is it really does kind of stop white's attack. The g-pawn is sufficiently defended, and our queen now has access to the whole 5th rank. So the chance of getting trapped is not there, really. Although, yeah, I was worried about moves like rook coming down, but now that my pawn's on f6, it's defending. And the computer is saying the best move here is like, well, there's a few moves, but it's giving triple zeros all around, so means just equal. So I guess white's attack kind of stops here. And I wish I'd seen that because I made a big blunder. That's the move g5. And in hindsight, this is so obviously bad because I know that you don't want to push pawns in front of your king when you're being attacked. And also, I didn't properly calculate h5. And h5, well, my pawns are going to get blown up and my king's going to be exposed real fast here. So I did not really know what to do here. The computer says play queen g6. That's a pretty scary move to make too, because now you're in the line of fire. Like, is my queen going to get pinned to my king? Oh no, in the lines I was calculating, it didn't look good to me. So I chose an even worse move, which is this. So my idea was to x-ray the g-pawn, but I just don't have enough defenders. Yeah, so if you count, I've got 1, 2, 3 defenders on the g-pawn, and white has 1, 2, 3, 4 attackers. And that means white is ready to run me over. And so this does happen. H takes g5. F takes. Bishop takes, threatening to win my queen and discoveries as well. This is kind of forced. And now check. Yeah, so I knew I was losing here, but I thought I'd try to hold on. You never know if people will make mistakes. The only square for the king was on f7. And now she played queen f4 check, which I saw. And now I pretty much need to offer this queen trade. I'm a pawn down, or am I? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, yeah, I'm a pawn down, and my pawns are also weaker, so I'm in a lost endgame. But I think the attack is scarier at this point, and the computer agrees. Here, she made a bit of a blunder, if you ask me, but it's still winning for her, so I don't think it matters that much. She played queen takes and went into this endgame. But much stronger would be like queen h4. This is one move the computer wants. And then the idea to bring the rook down and just... This is really powerful. I'm going to get checkmated, basically. So she could have ended the game sooner. Instead, she made me suffer a while. Alright, so... She doubled up on my pawn. So I attacked hers. And now this move, d5. Pretty interesting. Yeah, I didn't really know what to do here. Notice that this pawn is pinned because this rook is only defended once. So if I take with this pawn, I lose a rook. And if I take with this one, it's attacked again. So I wasn't really sure what to do here. So I played rook e7. Now my rook's defended. And she played an interesting move. D takes c6. I really like her idea. She's arguing that she's up a pawn and all of my pawns are isolated. So this is pretty much winning. And actually, I'll probably just fly through the moves now because there's not much hope for me. So she's advancing her majority. Very smart. Yeah, and I allowed the rooks to get traded off, which is probably also a mistake, although I think it's just losing anyways. So now f4, so powerful, because now she's going to create a pass pawn on the king side, and then she also has a pass pawn on the queen side. And I have a pass pawn, but it's easily stopped by her king. And she doesn't need her king to queen one of these pawns, so I kept hoping for a mistake, but no such luck. And in this position, I resigned. So yeah, what a fascinating game. I feel like she basically just like outplayed me in the opening because she went for this interesting sideline where the dark square bishop, the development of this bishop is delayed and ends up on f4. She could have had that g4 trick. Yeah, right here when I castled g4. So that's something I'll definitely watch for in the future. And then in the middle game, I made the wrong choice when I played knight d5, I think. So knight takes e5 is better here. I don't think this is totally horrible, but like this position, even though I had a way out of it, it does feel like white is putting the pressure on black, and I'm moving my queen too much, and yeah, now white just has a clear-cut attack. Queen g3, rook e4, rook g4, and then next rook to e1. Yeah, and the computer says I defended this fine until this point right here. So queen h5. But you could argue that I let myself get in this position to where there's only one defensive move that keeps me in it. So maybe black's already worse here, despite what the computer says. Yeah, and then I just didn't know what to do here. I don't really think I have any good moves. So queen g3 is not a move you want to make, and if that's the best move, then it just means I'm busted here. Yep, so she breaks through on the g file and trades into this winning endgame. Yeah, and I love how she split all my pawns too. So congrats to Chloe. It's not the way I wanted to start the tournament. I just felt outplayed in every way, but you know, that's okay. I know I have a lot to learn, and so I think I have learned from this game. So please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. If you have any tips, I'm always up for that. And thanks for listening. Bye.